misdemeanor site.
10-4-12. Welcome to Law and Order BUX. I'm your host, Bucks County Sheriff Fred Harran. Every corner of Bucks County has a story to tell. Sometimes a story of resilience. Sometimes a story that chills us to the bone. Sometimes a story of government not being able to get out of its own way. Here, the forces of law and order are constantly at work, often behind the scenes. Join us as we delve into the gripping realities of crime and justice in our community. We'll explore the hidden worlds, the difficult decisions, and the unwavering commitment it takes to maintain law and order right here in Bucks County. Hello and welcome to episode 7, and we're doing filming this week on episodes 8 and 9. We are moving along. We've got so many topics. I am so excited. Law and Order BUX, BUX, and I'm your host, Fred Harran, the Bucks County Sheriff. Getting some great feedback. Last week was amazing with our prothonotary, Colleen Christian, and the whole protection from abuse system and how that works. And I know people are listening because they're calling in and they're following up on stuff. So this is great. Remember I told you when, we put the teaser out for this, for the first episode, this is not just going to be about crime. It's going to be about other things, about government. And I got a lot to say about government. But today we are bringing in for episode 7 a very, very good friend of mine. And now one of our really aggressive, I shouldn't say aggressive, but progressive. And I'm not talking about what Washington, D.C. did to the word progressive. I mean, a great guy that's really, you have an idea, you take it to him and the whole bunch here in Bucks County, just run with it and make things happen. Joe Hogan, our state representative from the 142nd Legislative District, and joining us from Harrisburg. I know you guys are in session today. Representative, thank you so much. I know you guys, your schedule, the guys and ladies out there from BUX, the whole crew, I know your schedule is so busy, but this is something well, because I get very frustrated sometimes, and I know you do too, because you are a doer, and I know you bring a lot of good bills and a lot of great things. The programs that you've done already, you and Senator Farry and the whole team from Bucks County, the whole group, both sides of the aisle, working hard for Bucks County, and I'm going to get some other folks on as time goes on. But Joe, Representative, I'm so glad you're able.
Joe is fine. Fine.
I'm so glad you're able to join us today. And can you give us a little background about how you got to the state legislature? And we want to really dive into what it's like. And I want to really focus in how an idea gets past everything, through everything, gets to the governor's desk for signature, and then becomes policy or law. And some of the challenges you're facing in Harrisburg right now. But Representative, you could take it away. That would be great. I'm going to throw some things and interject, but just take it away, Representative.
Sure. Yeah. So, I got started working for our former Congressman, Mike Fitzpatrick. That's kind of how I got started in government and politics. I worked for Mike till he retired from Congress. Was in the private sector for a little bit. And then I worked for our county's redevelopment authority, which it's an economic development agency. It's a little bit of what I was doing with Mike from time to time, helping out businesses, things like that. And then I was actually in Poland at the time in March 2022. My wife and a friend went over to help the Ukrainian refugees. We were at, the border, and I got the phone call that Senator Tommy Tomlinson, who, used to represent Ben Salem and some other great parts, was retiring. State Representative Frank Ferry was going to run for that seat. And then Frank called me and said, I'm running, and I think you should run for my House seat. So, we came back from Poland. I talked to my wife, and then we made the determination that I think I had more to offer by kind of being in the arena than sitting on the sidelines. And, I left the job at the RDA, focused on campaigning, and here I am now. So I'm in my second term in Harrisburg, represent Lower Bucks County. So like Langhorne area, Feasterville, Pendel, a small bit of Holland. And it's one of the most 50-50 districts in the entire state. That's not just me saying that. That's like basically all the prognosticators will say it. The registration is near equal. The demographics are near equal and they're split. So it's a real challenge, but it keeps me busy and it keeps me really focused on what matters most. And it's the people back home. A lot of stuff we do here doesn't end up going anywhere, but when you're able to help people out back home in the district, you're able to help them navigate government bureaucracy. And more importantly, when you're meeting with them and you're hearing ideas, and as you said, you're not shy to come to us with ideas. And I think that's great. You'll see something, you'll recognize it's a problem. It's an issue that needs to be addressed, and you'll come right to us and we'll work on trying to address it. And sometimes it moves a lot slower than any of us would like, but when it does happen, it can happen very quickly, and it's good for everybody. So, but yeah, I mean, that's more or less how I got here now. We're in our budget season right now. We're constitutionally required to have a budget by June 30th, and we've been very unsuccessful at meeting that. I think Governor Rendell at the time only made one budget on time, so it goes back many years. But we're facing like a real budget deficit here, structural deficit in our Commonwealth. We're an aging Commonwealth. We're not attracting enough young people. We aren't having enough children to kind of keep the population up, to keep the working age population up. So we're facing some major structural deficits that we have to address. And unfortunately, right now, it doesn't seem like there's any agreement on what this budget's going to look like. So we could be in for, I think, a long summer.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
You think if there's no budget, how does that affect the average citizen in Pennsylvania, in the Commonwealth? Does that affect parks? I mean, I know like the feds, and I don't know the answer to this. I know like they pass continuing resolutions just to keep things moving. Does the same happen at a state level, the Commonwealth level?
Yeah, I mean, I think the conventional wisdom is that we're going to probably pass some flat level thing until the broader package can be agreed upon. And what I'm learning in Harrisburg, and again, I'm only in my third budget cycle now, but this is where a lot of the deals get made and a lot of the compromises get made. So, I don't know if the governor's actually signed a single piece of legislation this year yet. I could be wrong. But, a lot of it will get held in one chamber or the other until they can work out a deal and then say, all right, you know what? We'll take this bill for that bill and this for that, assuming we get all the votes for the budget. And then that's kind of how the governor signs off on stuff. So, in DC, it's more or less, we got to fund everything for the next 6 months. So here it's going to be the exact same flat level funding. Go on, we'll get it done. I think we'll probably do some flat level thing, like I said, and then maybe come back in the fall with a more comprehensive reform, because we got, the big debate right now is these skill games, and I know you're familiar with them. They've popped up all over. They're all over every municipality now. They look like slot machines. They act like slot machines. They pay out like slot machines, but they're not slot machines. So they haven't been taxed. They haven't been regulated. They're popping up not just in bars, or they're in convenience stores now. They're in tobacco shops. I mean, I've seen them in barber shops. And, there's no protections to make sure that minors aren't using them, things like that. So that's where the big battle's at now. For years, they were just ignored.
I remember in Bensalem, and I know, Bensalem was really, and, of course, that's where I'm from. Bensalem's really, really on top of stuff there. I know they passed some legislation at a LNI for license inspection, really to try to ban these machines and limit their accessibility. But I remember the 7-Eleven in the Chamonix Valley, going in there one time on my way to work to grab a cup of coffee, and there was I guess a mom playing the machine at 7:30 in the morning, and her 5-year-old kid just sitting there. This is not what should be going on. And in Bensalem, they've had some robberies with these machines. So it is very problematic. And you're right. They're not per se gambling machines, but they're untaxed, they're unregulated, and you can't have 5-year-olds and parents, losing their rent money or their mortgage money or their electric money, because gambling is an addiction, and there's got to be some control over this. It's like having beer anywhere.
I don't know. Most people don't know this, but in Pennsylvania, a slot machine has to pay out like a certain percentage of basically every dollar that puts into it, like 90 some cents or whatever, is eventually paid back out. And like it can be within a range, and they're hardwired back to Harrisburg to monitor like every single machine. These skill games have none of that. So you can
Right.
have a new skill machine that's put into an establishment. The first week or so, it's paying out like, 80, 90%. So everyone thinks, oh, it's, I'm lucky on this. And then, in a week, the guy can come in and just dial it back. So it's only at 20%. And, that's kind of why this needs to be regulated, because people are getting, they're scammed from it. And as you said, it's an addiction, and you're just making it easier and easier and easier for that addiction.
Oh, listen, I agree. So I wasn't planning on talking about this, but if you don't mind, you're talking about addiction. I know I saw this morning chiefs were testifying about the legalization of marijuana. We're against it. I know that's a big item right now. And where is that?
Yeah, so there was a bill that came out of the House. It was party line vote. So the Statehouse is controlled by the Democratic caucus. They have 102 members. The House Republicans have 101. So it came out on party line vote, and that would have established like a state store model for adult use, which a lot of bad things about that kind of model. First of all, it wouldn't be up and running for probably a couple of years. So any revenue generation would have only come after a significant investment in real estate, training, acquisition, things like that. But that bill was immediately sent to the Senate, and then the Senate committee that had jurisdiction over it held a hearing, and it failed to advance, I believe, on bipartisan grounds. So it's dead in the Senate. There's still some talk about legalization for adult use at some point. There's a lot of different proposals out there. If I had to guess, I would say it's going to happen at some point. I don't know if it's going to happen this year or next year, but I think at some point.
I have been very vocal, and the first time I met John Fetterman, the senator, in person was when he was lieutenant governor, and he was going around the state doing the marijuana things, and the senator and I, back then he was lieutenant governor, got in kind of a disagreement over it, an argument. I was representing the BUX County Chiefs at the time. They asked me to speak out against it. I am against it for a million reasons, which, that might have to be its own podcast when we talk about medical marijuana. But I find it very interesting, and I'm pretty confident of this fact. Medical marijuana is the only medicine that's taxed. So if you go to the Acme or you go to CVS and you buy Tylenol and all that stuff, there's no tax on that. So no offense to your colleagues, but when they're trying to sell that, medical marijuana, people need it, blah blah. Okay, you want to go with that theory? Great, let's go with that. Don't tax it. Give it out tax free like other medicines. So it's a bunch of BS. It's not about helping the people. It's about creating a tax revenue. We're in
a tough spot where we live, suburban Bucks County, because if you travel down 95 or Route 1 into New Jersey, you're seeing billboards everywhere.
Right.
And it's, first exit here, first exit there. So like, I'm not delusional in the sense that responsible adults are just going to New Jersey to get the products that they want. But there's other concerns coming out now. I mean, there's more and more studies. The THC concentration's a lot higher. The impact on brain development for minors is showing a lot of warning signs now, and especially in younger men that have used it throughout their teenage years. So, I think you may hear a lot of people say, "Oh, I'd rather my kids smoke marijuana or cannabis than drink alcohol." I don't know if that's the healthiest, safest option at this point. And I think as we have more of this conversation, we don't try to rush out major policy reforms. That's kind of one of my biggest frustrations about being here in Harrisburg. And a lot of industry people have shared it with me. Minimum wage was another example of that. We're just pushing stuff out of the House to say we did something, and these are major policy proposals that need time to go through the process. They need stakeholder input. They need more, if you can get something to be bipartisan, come out and talk to me. I have a very bipartisan record, and I have very good relationships with a lot of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle. I'm willing to work on these major policy issues to move Pennsylvania forward. But when you're just throwing something on my plate and saying, hey, you want to amend this, you have 3 hours to issue an amendment and we're voting on it tomorrow. That's that's not really the democratic process, in my opinion. That's just trying to check a box and say you did something.
No, I agree with you, and I think maybe we'll bring you back, Representative, maybe some other folks too. And this podcast is not a political issue at all. For me, the things I do are non-political. It's right or wrong, and it's based on crime, law and order and protecting people. But there's so many issues, and the marijuana today is not the marijuana of 1970, folks. It's a different marijuana. But I think we need to come back to that. But Representative, can you? I think it's one of the things I wanted to get through, and I know it's probably it's a longer process that I'm going to ask you to dive into. How does an idea become a law?
So, I'll give you a great example, right? Our United Way, they have a help center in Bristol. It's this great little, it's pretty big shop now, but they help people out in need. And I was down there for their 5-year anniversary, just stopping by to congratulate them. And I was talking to the CEO, and, we just were making small talk, and the idea of early childhood education came up. And this is a space I've been involved with. Shelby Labs, also from Bucks County, has been very involved with it. Both of us have young children now. And, Marissa gave me this, she had this great idea, and we were just making small talk on it. And from there it went, I went back to I sit on the Children and Youth Committee. I had a meeting set up with the United Way staff and our committee staff, the attorney on our staff, about the idea, about the feasibility of it. And then we started moving on it. We realized it was a possibility. So in Harrisburg, the first thing you do is, once you have an idea because somebody came to you about it or you've talked, you introduce what's called a co-sponsorship memo. And that says, hey, I'm going to do this. And you can keep that memo out there for a day. You can keep it out there for 2 years. But if other people are interested, they'll add their name to that co-sponsorship memo, so that when the language is finally created and you introduce it and you get a bill number, all those names are printed at the top. And then that bill is then referred to a committee. The Speaker of the House refers the bill to whichever committee it thinks is relevant. And then it's up to the committee chair whether or not they're going to hold a hearing on it, whether or not they're going to vote on it. So as conventional wisdom is, most bills just die in committee. Thousands of bills get introduced, and committees can do absolutely nothing, or they can be very active. But once it comes out of committee, that's called first consideration. It goes to the House on second consideration, and that's where you may have an opportunity to amend it or not. What we've learned is that certain amendments that the majority party does not like, they do a procedural motion called tabling the amendment. So, it's an amendment to say everybody gets a free dog or cat in Pennsylvania. They don't want to vote on it, so they table the amendment, and then you vote on tabling. So it's meant to protect members so that they don't have to vote on something or not. And then if it goes that way, if it passes on second consideration, which it almost always basically always does. There's a procedural way to defeat it, but I won't explain that. And then it goes to third, and that's where you vote up or down on it. And then if it passes, it goes to the Senate, and the process is almost exactly the same in the Senate. So it gets that, there's a lot of barriers for government, and there's a lot of arguments for why that's good, because bad ideas just can't race through the process. And, it's a feature of our system, all the gridlock. But it can be incredibly frustrating, and you got to put in the time. You got to talk to your colleagues. You got to put in time with maybe talking to the chair. You got to convince people on the other side why it's a good idea, why they should support it. And it's part of the job. I knew what I was signing up for.
No, and listen, it is very frustrating. But I also know a lot of stuff in Bucks County. A lot of stuff got through. Some good stuff. The Lindsay's Law, which we started when I was in Bensalem for Lindsay Picone, and our next podcast is going to be about sextortion, and we're going to be talking about that at the next podcast. And Lindsay's Law, which is huge, and I believe Casey Tomlinson, got that through. And then I know you guys are working on the DNA legislation again. This is going to be 1, 2, 3, the fourth crack at it. Third or fourth crack at it. And this is just, to me, it makes a lot of sense. And I appreciate Senator Farry and the group, trying to push this through, not push it through. That's a bad wording, but trying but trying to do that. You think that's got some possibilities? We had, by the way, Representative, we had actually Spencer already was on podcast 2 or 3 explaining the DNA legislation. So our listeners, if they've listened to all 6 episodes so far, they have an understanding of what we're talking about. If you haven't, and you're like, what's he talking about? Go back and listen to the other episodes, because we lay foundation from episode to episode. But what do you think, Representative? You think we got a chance, hopefully?
I think anything has a chance. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's definitely an uphill battle. Look, California and Texas have done this, blue and red as you can get. They understand the benefit. They understand how it helps law enforcement, how it helps to solve cold cases. The opposition from this, opposition of a lot of other crimes in Pennsylvania, comes from the theoretical aspect of we shouldn't be creating more crimes. We have enough crimes on the books. We have an incarceration problem, things like that. But this DNA bill, as your viewers would listen from I didn't listen to the other podcast, but I've met Ashley enough times to know the story.
I can't believe that.
It's on my summer reading list. I promise. I'm going to get
that long ride back and forth to Harrisburg, Representative. Come on.
Usually time for phone calls and other stuff, but this is used to catch violent criminals, violent predators. And, as I believe you said before, this isn't, someone's like armed robbery or shootout or rape or something. It's probably not their first time they've committed a crime. It's probably not the first, so if you're able to collect that DNA and prevent future crimes from happening again, like that should move. And, Frank and I have another bill, Senator Ferry. We had a gun store that was robbed in Langhorne. They didn't go in for the antiques. They didn't go in for the expensive rifles and everything like that. They went in for the handguns that they knew had the most street value. And they were teenagers. Fortunately, they were caught. I think the guns were all recovered. But, you rob a gun store, like that should be a mandatory minimum. You are not robbing. You're not taking those guns for any other purpose than to put them into the crime stream, like the crime ecosystem. So like that should be just mandatory time in prison, because it's, to me, that's a no-brainer. You're a felon in possession of a firearm that you're not supposed to. Again, go to jail. You have no reason to have that firearm. You've lost that right. Most people will probably agree with that. And it shouldn't be a catch and release. You should go right into prison. And I know this happens in Bensalem all the time. The Bensalem law enforcement are pulling people over for traffic violations. They're finding out that there may be a warrant or something, or that they're a felon. They find a firearm on them, and they're not in Philadelphia anymore. So they're going to the Bucks County. They're going to the Bucks County jail. So
no, you're absolutely right. And again, this is no brainer. And this bill, this law has gotten some opposition from both sides of the aisle. So it's interesting, but we're going to keep pushing, because I think at the end of the day, it's the right thing to do. It's absolutely the right thing to do. So I appreciate, you folks doing this. I know you guys just brought this great training here. Our delegates from Bucks County. I know the senator was instrumental. I don't know who else had a lot of involvement, but we just had this training that the cops are still talking about here, the Israeli active shooter training. By the way, the other night I was talking to Gideon. He's back in Israel. I think he might be coming back to the U.S. For another training. But after they were bombing in Tel Aviv, that's where Gideon lives, in Tel Aviv, and he was okay. His family, his grandkids, everybody was okay. But it extremely nerve-wracking and waiting for the president to do something. And that was obviously before the bombing in Iran. So I haven't talked to Gideon since, but him and his team, I know some of them were called back to active duty in Israel. But of course, our prayers are with them. But, you guys, really had some good, forward, out of the box thinking, bringing these Israelis in here, the best of the best, to train Bucks County law enforcement. And only if I think 4 counties in the Commonwealth are getting that training. Can you tell us a little bit about that, how that happened?
Yeah, so that's part of, the budget process, right? And there's opportunities, sausage is made. I'm not spilling any secrets here, but, you can cut some deals and you can try to get funding for projects that are important to you. And, there's no guarantee, there's no success, but you're typically more successful when it's bicameral, it's House and Senate. and you get a handful of people to jump on board with you. So, this year we got the funding for that training, which I'm very proud of that we were able to do that. I'm even more proud that we were able to do it in a part of the community I represent in Langhorne. But last year we also got the funding for the Bearcat.
Yes.
So Lower Bucks County will have a dedicated Bearcat now if there's ever when the next incident is going to happen.
Let's tell our audience what a Bearcat is. So Bearcat is a vehicle that's able to be used as a rescue vehicle if there's gunfire being displayed or being shot or in play, if you will. Police are able to utilize this vehicle that can take on gunfire and rescue downed officers, hostages, people that may have been hurt. And I know what some people are thinking. Well, wow, in Bucks County, the Bearcat that we got right after 9/11 with money from some terrorism grants, that has bullet holes, gunfire in it, because we have those situations. And, Chief Barterillo did a phenomenal job getting the story out last week. Joe Barterillo from Middletown PD, the chief there, a good friend of mine. But that was not an active shooter. It was a shooting incident. But we do get incidences here in Bucks County where people barricade themselves and shoot out their windows. And you got to be able to rescue people safely. And I can't even begin to thank you, Representative, for you and your team. And of course, our state senator leading the way, getting this important tool to save lives.
Yeah. And I think right after we kind of, nothing's done until it's done. But when it was Harrisburg done, I think there was an incident maybe in Falls Township where somebody was barricaded and they had to bring the Bearcat in. And again, for your listeners, your viewers, the issue here is not just that the one that Bucks County has is aging and has bullet holes in it. It's that it's housed in the central part of the county for the entire county. And there's only so many certified drivers. So you need a driver that's going to run up to Central Bucks, that's going to drive it down to the incident. So you're talking, at best an hour, but more likely 2 hours.
Correct.
So by housing one in Lower Bucks, where the population density is higher, you're hopefully cutting down on that incident response time and making it easier. And I think there was, I don't remember the specific example, but I remember asking you, there was a barricaded incident, I think in Levittown, and I asked you, was a Bearcat used? And you said, no, they couldn't get a driver in time. Yeah. And if that went south because we didn't have the resources at the time, that would have been horrific. So
it's crazy.
Yeah, I'm excited for it to finally be delivered because it will help the community just a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely insane. What frustrates you in Harrisburg? And maybe we need a whole show for that. I don't know, Representative. But if you could give me one or two examples of what really frustrates you in Harrisburg, I can only imagine.
Yeah, well, I think it's like I said earlier. It's a lot of the performative stuff. It's not serious like policy negotiations and things like that. So, these are major policy areas, and we can have like real conversations about it. And it's not necessarily, like in DC, a lot of stuff that comes up like very quickly actually isn't quick. It's been percolating there for years and years by a think tank or something else, or like, it's been shared in circles. Here, stuff just comes out of nowhere. And I'll give you an example with the minimum wage. Last year, I voted for the minimum wage. I was one of only 2 Republicans last session to vote for the minimum wage. It would have uniformly raised it to $15 an hour over so many years throughout the Commonwealth. And in Bucks County, the effective minimum wage is already probably $15, if not more. You can go into a Wawa. I think Sesame Place for like a 16-year-old is probably like $14.50 or something already now. And then throughout the Commonwealth, only like it's less than 1% of workers are earning the minimum wage, and it's for a very short period of time. But so like I can get behind a plan that would raise it, maybe not 15, but like maybe to 12, maybe to $13 an hour. This bill that was basically rushed out of committee with little opportunity to talk about would have created like a tiered system where different counties had different minimum wages at different times, and then you index it and all this other stuff. So the district I represent literally borders Philadelphia. So I could go to County Line Road in Bustleton Pike, and I could look out, if this became law, that workers in the Walgreens or CVS right on the corner in Philadelphia deserve a higher minimum wage than workers in the Dunkin' Donuts in Bucks County. And that just, I just couldn't support something like that. So There's a lot of other issues with the bill, but that's something that if they came and talked to me, they came and talked to the other Republicans, or maybe a handful of others. We had an amendment that we were contemplating to just make it uniform to $12, $13. You probably would have got a lot of Republican votes for something like that, but we didn't do it. We just rushed it out, sent it to the Senate to say we did something. And then, by the way, political text messages were sent out to try to make it painful for me. So it's almost like it was only done for political reasons in the first place. So,
well, listen, we're all working for the same cause. At the end of the day, I like to really believe that there's a lot more that unites us and divides us. But
I agree.
And I do believe most of the folks are they have different thoughts, but I think we're all trying to do the same thing, just different ways to get there, and I'm okay with that as long as the end result is positive for the people.
I agree 100%, and I will tell you that the majority of the rank and file members out here, the majority of the members on both sides get along very well. We find a lot of agreement. We find a lot of things to work on together, and that's usually the best. The best products of legislation come out because they take a lot of time to work together, and you're ironing out differences, and you're trying to figure this stuff out. And you're not just doing it to score the quick political point. You recognize there's a problem and you're trying to help address it. And that's one of the things I like about Harrisburg is that for the most part, all of my colleagues get along well with each other and, are open to solving problems and working towards actual solutions.
Well, I appreciate it. I know the way you are, you want to get the job done. Let's talk about, as we start to wrap up today, the Summertime Safety Series.
Yeah.
We're looking. We're going to try to take it on the road and do all kinds of different topics. I know your office and my office and some others are going to work together to get some messages out during the summer to parents. We want to talk about. We're trying to roll out this. I don't want to go into too much detail today because we're doing it next week. The Sextortion app, we're trying to get that rolled out. We will be the third state, I'm hoping, to roll this out. Virginia and West Virginia are going to be up and running by the end of August. But I know you and I have been working on this series to get all kinds of important messages out. We've been doing stuff on scams. I just got a call. This is great, Representative. I got a call from a lady today that called me, said, I attended one of your scam presentations and I remembered everything you said. And I want to let you know, I got a call yesterday from a voice.
That's great.
Pretending to be my grandchild.
That's great.
I'm listening to the voice and I'm like, okay. And all she heard in the background was our presentation on scams. And she hung up on a person and then she called me with the phone numbers that came up. Obviously, they're all spoof numbers. One is from outside the United States. But offline, Representative, I got to talk to you about a project that just came up the other day with the Attorney General's office. This thing could be poor Dave Sunday doesn't even know about it yet. I was talking to somebody in his office, but this thing is going to be could be a good answer for our scamming problem here, not only in Bucks County but the whole Commonwealth. And I think this is going to be a Commonwealth approach. And it's not going to be the end all, got all, but it's going to be a heck of a help to help our seniors and our folks that are being scammed, because we're getting these scams in record numbers. But I know your Summertime Safety Series, I'm excited when we launch that social media wise to get people to come out. So I'm real excited about that.
Yeah, well, that's great that woman called you, and that just goes to show you, I've all about education and awareness. This is going to keep happening, but the more you educate people, the more you raise awareness, you're going to give them the tools to protect themselves. So the Attorney General, Dave Sunday, a great guy. If he's going to do something, I'd love to help. Been, happy to partner with him on anything to help our Commonwealth out.
He doesn't know it yet. He doesn't know it
yet. Well, he will soon. But yeah, this Summertime Safety Series, the idea of it kind of started last year with doing some health, important health things for younger, parents or grandparents or caregivers of younger children. And kind of when I found out I was having a child, it was I don't even know how to do CPR if my daughter's choking. I want to raise some awareness. And we kind of ran into some logistical hurdles of that, but we were kind of going back to what's some fun stuff to do in the summer, right? People go away on the weekends, kids are home, parents are probably looking for something to do in the evening with the kids, keep them busy. So this is kind of where this idea came from. You're doing a lot of stuff in the arena. Our DA, Jennifer Shorn's doing a lot in the arena. I've been trying to do a lot of different stuff. So I figured, why don't we just bring everybody together? You know, maybe we'll get some like pretzels or water ice for the kids or something like that. And then just help educate parents, provide some information, provide resources, let them know that there's help out there, things like that. Just how to stay safe. It's not, you know, how to stay safe on the streets with your bicycle, you know, how to report suspicious people, but also on the internet now. And that's something, you know, you'll talk about, we've talked about, we've held a hearing on it. That's becoming a huge space where people need to stay safe, but also there's so many other ways out there. So I'm looking forward to it. We'll have more details to come. I think we have maybe 3 of them scheduled throughout the summer. We just got to iron out some of the other details, but I think it's going to be a really good time. And I hope as many people as possible can come out and attend it.
No, I'm good. I can't wait. And I know you got some ideas with that. I truly appreciate that. Well, this has been, you know, another great episode, I think. You know, I want to bring some other folks out and talk about government. And I think in a couple more episodes, you know, everything's been kind of nice so far, but I also got a lot of frustrations with government too. You know, we got to get stuff done a little quicker. And I know you shared a lot of some of your frustrations today. It's tough. I mean, to me, you know, I've been, you know, some other folks' names I won't mention that, you know, oh my God, Fred, be quiet already. You know who I'm talking about. You know, I've been trying to get this like hotel tax for, you know, this is just free law and order money, you know, money for municipalities. I know in Ben Salem, we tried that back when Sean Schaefer was with Tommy Tomlinson's office. And try to get this hotel tax keeps dying. This is just free money to Bucks County, and we're just not able to get that through for 100 reasons I get or I don't get. But we'll talk about some of the frustrations later on not getting things done as quickly as it should be. But you make a good point. The process is dying to be slow and with a lot of filters so that bad stuff doesn't sneak through either. And I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, well, you can have something that's really popular, but it's not fully thought out. You know, I got asked the other day, like, what would happen if no one was allowed to lobby? And, you know, that's one person here has what they think's a good idea. You know, it goes through the process with no one telling them that this is why it's bad or this is why it's hurtful. And then it becomes law. And a year or 2 later, you see all this negative come to fruition just because it was rammed through. And there was no one that was able to speak up in opposition. There was no one to challenge it. And then you're going back through the process to repeal something. So yeah, sometimes the gridlock's good, but it can be very frustrating, can be really challenging, and you know, it's part of the process.
I know there's a bill out there now. I think I was talking to somebody yesterday. I think Ben Salem just passed a resolution in support of it to, you know, with insurance payments for EMS. I don't know if it's a bill.
Yeah.
But I don't want to put you on the spot. I don't know where you are on it, but you know, my perspective is that, you know, the provider should be paid directly, the EMS, not the person who holds the insurance, because they're not. I can tell you my days as public safety director in Ben Salem, these people were cashing the checks and keeping it from Blue Cross and was never paying their ambulance bill. Yeah,
there is a bill. I believe I'm a co-sponsor of it. There's a couple bills that try to address this. I actually had this experience firsthand. My daughter had a major health scare. She had to have emergency surgery when she was 5.5 months old, and she had to take an emergency ambulance ride. It was with my wife, so I didn't do any of the paperwork or anything. I went home to get us clothes and take care of the dog, but I got this random package from our insurance provider and no idea like what it was. And I'm going through all these papers, and finally I see this check in there for almost $2,000. I'm thinking, like, what is this for? And it was like buried in all this other stuff. I could have just as easily thrown it out. But then I get, you know, two or 3 weeks later, I get a text message of all things from the provider, the EMS provider, saying I have a bill that's past due and it's going to collection. So I called the provider. I'm like, I haven't even received a bill. Like, I have this check, but you need to send me a bill. I'm not paying via text message. So I paid it. You know, it was a quick, painless process. But yeah, you know, you're right, Sheriff. I've heard from a lot of these directors of these services that, you know, they have 1 or 2 people that they know every single month They need a check for their rent or something, so they're calling an ambulance, and there's nothing that these providers can do about it. And it's actually closing. Some of these providers are closing up because they can't afford it anymore.
I'm telling you, it was a real problem in Ben Salem, and that's just a busy rescue squad, and they're a great squad. You know, I mean, I myself had to use them. But you know, here you are, representative, an individual who's been in government, you know, most of your adult life, I imagine, and a lawyer, and you're going through it, and you're like, what is this? So, you know, these insurance companies, they got to realize that, you know, the average individual would not being on the inside track, you know, of government would be like, well, what do I do? Oh, money. Thank you. You know, and then they get a bill and the money's gone.
Yeah.
Crazy. So that's a great note to end on. I'll give you a last words here, some parting thoughts, because when we close out this, I think I told you in my personal life, I just went through found out I was adopted. So my last podcast, I kind of gave them the beginning of that story. I'm now going to give them the middle at the end of this. You're free to stay on for the last 3 minutes after that, or you can hop off. I know you're busy, but give us some closing thoughts here, Rep.
No, well, I appreciate this opportunity. It's been good, and I hope, you know, the listeners and the viewers really kind of engage more with their state representatives, or want to learn a little bit more about the process, about what goes on here, and how things actually happen, and some of those things. But, you know, I think I've established a little bit of a reputation now for being a hard worker, but being somebody that cares about the community. You know, I'm married to a Democrat. I'm a Republican. I'm willing to work with anybody. I'll meet with basically anybody to have a conversation, and I try to be as frank and open as possible, like, you know, just like this conversation has been. So, you know, please reach out if I can be helpful. If you have ideas or something like that, please reach out. If you have a different state representative, I have no problem talking to them, working with them to see how we can kind of come forward with something. So, you know, with that, I appreciate it. Keep an eye out for that summertime safety series information. And, you know, if there's anything that I can do for you or your family or anybody else, please reach out.
So here we are, episode 7. A great time with Joe Hogan, our state representative in the 142nd. I know personally, I live in Tina Davis's district. She's great. You know, I see her all the time at events and getting stuff from her office all the time. And I know I've reached out when I was in Ben Salem to her office and I use Tina Davis as an example because she's my as a citizen and a resident and a voter in Bucks County, she's my state rep. And you know, she don't care what side of the aisle you're on. She'll help everybody, as well as they all will here in Bucks County, folks. We got a great team. So, you know, both groups, and they're really representing Bucks County. So last time I left off, I talked about, you know, my sister told me, you know, that I was adopted, and when I was having surgery done, I was 46 years old. So time goes on, and I guess it's my daughter, who I forget how old she was at the time. She's 28 now, but probably 6-7 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, I lost track of time. She says, hey, you know, why don't we do an ancestry test for, you know, just for the heck of it? I think Ancestry was doing a buy one, get one at the time of promotion. So we did it, my daughter and I, and obviously we hit to each other. We hit to, you know, some people we knew, and but then I started hitting to some folks like 4th, 5th cousins. Now I knew I was adopted this time and you really couldn't do much follow up. I wasn't going to hire and pay for a genealogist, but all of a sudden I hit to somebody, a young lady named Danielle. I won't give you her last name. And it hits to first cousin or closer, possibly niece or first cousin. So LinkedIn, Ancestry has like a messaging app like LinkedIn and Facebook and everything else. So I start to message her, and we go back, and she tells me this story that her mother, she knew her mother gave up a boy for adoption. I wasn't putting the ages and the timeline together, but we start communicating back and forth, and then the communication goes cold, and we stop communicating. And I don't know if I stopped or she stopped, but we stopped communicating, and I lost track. And it got really close to home, I guess, that, wow, this is somebody close. And I think both of us kind of panicked, like, this is getting real now. And the communication went cold. And that was the closest I got on Ancestry.com to finding anybody. So time goes on, years go by again. And my sister, my adoptive sister, who I grew up with, who's 9 years older than me. And I think I told you last time, she was adopted too, but different birth parents. She says to me, hey, New York's adoption, they have an open adoption right now. And she filed for hers and got her results. And she found out her birth mother had passed. So it kind of, her story kind of goes cold. There's some siblings out there for her, but she can't find them. I still have not done anything. I'm like, I don't want to know. I don't want to kick this door open. I don't know what stone I'm going to what I'm going to uncover, leave well enough alone. And I tell her, no, I'm not interested. I'm not interested. About 2.5 months ago, while talking to my sister again, she says, New York's open adoption is about to close. You've got a small window here if you want to get your original birth certificate. And I tell her, okay. I said, I'll do it. So I talked to my wife about it. I told my daughter about it. And we fill out the paperwork online. I pay my $60 to the state of New York. And I wait for the birth certificate to come in. I'm told 4 to 6 weeks. And it comes in the mail. Stay tuned to the next episode where this saga continues. Not saga, where this story continues. It's quite interesting. And next week, we're going to be talking about sextortion and a new program we're bringing the district attorney, myself, and State Representative Hogan and Tomlinson and Marcel and Farry and the whole group are going to bring to BUX County. All goes well. And we'll be the third state to launch this project. So until next week, thanks for joining in. Thanks for listening. Spread the word. God bless you and your families, and God bless this great country of ours. Thank you for joining us as we explore another aspect of law enforcement in BUX County. To stay up to date on future episodes and gain further insight into the work we do, be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. For more information about the BUX County Sheriff's Office and the services we provide, please visit our website and be sure to download the official BUX County Sheriff's Office app, available on Google Play and in the App Store. Join us next time for another in-depth look at law and order right here in BUX County.